Yi. In the 1920s, thousands of Americans kept a ceramic crock on their kitchen counter. They filled it with tap water each night and drank from it every morning, believing the water inside had become medicine. The crock was lined with radioactive ore. It was not a secret. It was the selling point. Today we associate radiation with disaster, with exclusion zones and hazmat suits, with Chernobyl and cancer wards. The idea that anyone would deliberately drink radioactive water sounds like a failure of basic sense. But for roughly 2 decades, radium water was not a fringe product sold from the back of a wagon. It was mainstream, it was advertised in respectable publications, and it was consumed daily by people who could afford the best of everything. To understand how this happened, you have to understand what came before. Long before anyone isolated radium, there was already a deep cultural belief in the healing power of mineral springs. For centuries, people traveled to natural springs where water emerged from underground passages, picking up dissolved minerals, salts, sulfur compounds, and gases along the way. The dissolved substances altered the water's taste and, in public perception, gave it therapeutic value. Mineral water and its precipitated salts had been important commercial products for generations. The logic was simple. Nature's water, drawn from deep in the earth, carried something extra, something pure, something restorative. Whether mineral springs actually delivered the cures attributed to them remained uncertain, but the commercial tradition was powerful and self-reinforcing. Testimonials accumulated over generations, and the practice carried an air of ancient legitimacy. When radium was discovered, it fit neatly into this existing framework. Here was a substance found in rock and ore, naturally present in certain spring waters, and it was visibly, measurably energetic. It glowed, it emitted heat, it seemed to vibrate with life force. At the time, radioactivity was new, poorly understood, and genuinely astonishing to scientists and laypeople alike. The popular story that emerged later, that radium was immediately recognized as miraculous and universally embraced overnight, simplifies what actually happened. The adoption was gradual, driven by commercial interests that outpaced scientific understanding. There was no single moment of acceptance. Instead, there was a slow convergence of entrepreneurial ambition, public fascination, and the pre-existing cultural trust in mineral water. In 1912, a man named R.W. Thomas patented a device that would eventually be called the radium ore Revigator. Thomas was not a scientist or a physician. He was working as a stock salesman in Arizona at the time. By 1923, he had moved to Southern California to begin manufacturing his patent. The device was a ceramic water crock lined with radioactive materials. You filled it with ordinary water, left it overnight, and in the morning the water contained radon, the colorless, odorless radioactive gas that is the immediate decay product of radium isotopes. The Revigator was marketed as a way to bring the mineral spring into your home. Why travel to a spa when your kitchen counter could produce the same water every night? In 1924, following several successful advertising campaigns that left Thomas unable to keep up with demand, he sold his operation to the Dow Harriman Pump and Machinery Company. They sold thousands of the devices through the 1920s and 30s. It is important to distinguish the device's popularization from its invention. Thomas patented it in 1912, but it did not achieve mass commercial reach until over a decade later under different ownership and aggressive marketing. The Revigator was not the only product in this market. There were also patent medicines containing radium salts dissolved in water, sold in small bottles for daily consumption. Among the most notable was a product called Radithor, and no story captures the consequences of this era more starkly than what happened to Eben Byers. Ebenezer McBurney Byers was an American socialite, sportsman, and industrialist. He won the 1906 U.S. Amateur Championship in golf. He was wealthy, well-connected, and active. At some point, he began consuming Radithor regularly. Not cautiously, not occasionally. Over time, Byers consumed approximately 1,400 bottles of radium water. The radium accumulated in his bones. It did not pass through, it settled, and it continued to emit radiation from inside his skeleton. Eben Byers died from jawbone cancer. The radioactive material had destroyed his bone tissue from within. Byers was not a poor man, duped by a street corner charlatan. He was among the wealthiest people in the country, consuming what he believed to be a premium health product. That detail matters. It tells us this was not simply a scam targeting the vulnerable. The entire framework of understanding was wrong. The danger of low-level chronic radiation exposure had not yet been established in public knowledge or, in many cases, in medical consensus. It is uncertain exactly when Byers began drinking Radithor or what specific claims persuaded him. What the record establishes is the outcome and the scale of his consumption. The Radium Girls provide another dimension of this same era. These were female factory workers who contracted radiation poisoning from painting watch dials with self-luminous radium paint. The work began around 1917 in a factory in Orange, New Jersey, and continued through the early 1920s at factories in Ottawa, Illinois, and Waterbury, Connecticut. The women were instructed to point their brushes with their lips, ingesting radium with every stroke. Their suffering and their legal fight for recognition helped establish that radium exposure was dangerous. The cases forced a slow, painful confrontation with what the human body actually experiences when radioactive material enters it and stays. The popular legend that a single dramatic lawsuit ended the radium industry overnight does not match the documented timeline. The process was prolonged, contested, and bitterly fought by manufacturers at every stage. The transformation was not instant. The Revigator continued selling into the 1930s, even as evidence mounted. But gradually, regulation caught up. The framework that had made radium water seem logical, the ancient trust in mineral springs, the excitement over a glowing new element, the commercial machinery of patent medicine, all of it collapsed under the weight of documented harm. Today, no one sells radium water as a health tonic. That specific danger is gone, but the Revigator still exists in museum collections. You can find them in antiques shops, ceramic crocks with faded labels promising perpetual health. They are still mildly radioactive. The ore lining does not stop emitting just because the product was discontinued. What survived from this era is less visible but more structural. The regulatory apparatus that now governs health claims about consumer products exists in part because of what happened when radium was sold freely. The concept that a substance can be simultaneously natural, energetic, and lethal that took decades and considerable human cost to establish. The next time you see a product marketed with the language of natural energy, of mineral purity, of something drawn from deep in the earth that carries a special vitality, remember that the language is very old. It predates radium. It predates modern chemistry, and for a brief, devastating window in the early 20th century, it was used to sell people a glass of radiation every morning before breakfast. They did not drink it because they were foolish. They drank it because every authority they trusted told them it was the future of health. The crock on the counter was not hidden. It was displayed with pride.